The Jacksonville Jaguars, unfortunately, did fall to the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 2 of the preseason, their third official preseason game, 16-15. And throughout this recap, we're going to talk about a lot of really interesting things that happened throughout this game. You had Trevor Lawrence, who kind of earned that short-term nickname, Trevor Mutombo, for that finger wag he gave a Pittsburgh Steelers defender after a beautiful throw over his head. And then you have the battle between two Georgia products, Steelers wide receiver George Pickens, and then obviously Jaguars corner Tyson Campbell. And then you also have that incredibly stout run defense that is looking incredible through the first couple games that they've actually played as a full unit. There's a lot of stuff to get into, but we're going to start off with the man himself, the golden child, the prodigy, Trevor Lawrence. Trevor had a decent game. I'm not going to call it a good game. I'm not going to call it a great game. I'm not going to call it a bad game. It was a decent game. He had some bad misses. He had the big miss on the long throw to Kirk. That would have been a great touchdown, but would have been the only touchdown the first team scored in the game. But then you also look at, he had some short misses. He had just some interesting decision making throughout certain parts of the game, which are to be expected. He's playing with new people. Kirk, it was his first time playing with Kirk, and he's still feeling out this wide receiver unit as a whole. And you take it as a whole, he's played well throughout the preseason, and PFF for the game against the Steelers gave him an adjusted completion percentage of 70%, and also had him with 0 turnover-worthy throws of his 24 dropbacks that he had in the game. So you look at what he did poorly, yes, but whenever you look at his performance as a whole throughout the preseason, and then you just look at that 21 passes that he made, were there some bad ones? Yes. Were there some really good passes? Yes. So we're just going to have to find that happy medium for Trevor Lawrence. But then the one thing I'm really excited to see him continue to develop and use is those legs. There was one play where he saw the pocket collapse quick. He saw that he saw every Pittsburgh Steeler defender with his back to him. He took off running, gets the first down, makes a nice play out of it. He has the athleticism to use his legs. It was a good preseason for Trevor. I'm happy to see the development that he's had, and I'm sure a lot of Jaguar fans are as well. And then for the running backs, Travis Etienne had a very nice game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He really showed some great things inside the tackles. And then also when he busted it out to the outside, he really showed that make a man miss in the phone booth style play that he showed that he has when he was in Clemson. He really was able to do a lot of nice things. Then you have Snoop Conner. Snoop Conner is just really starting to impress me. I made a video about how he's one person that can really blow through the expectations that have been set for him as a 5th-round rookie. But man, he looks like if you're going to get in his way and you're going to make the business decision to try to tackle Snoop Conner, prepare to be on the training table for a couple days, because you're going to be banged up, you're going to be bruised, and you're going to be hurting, because this man is a freight train. And I love every second of it. I love the fact that Smash Mouth football is coming back to Jacksonville. So I couldn't be more excited. But then not only is he the bruising running back that we've so longed for a very long time, you also have the ability to play him in the passing game. He caught an incredible screenplay. And, with some assistance from All-Pro Brandon Sheriff, he really just put this one dude on ice skates. He hit them with a move, and then Brandon Sheriff just comes through, cleaning him out of the way like a snowplower during a blizzard. Just takes him right out of the play completely. Tells him, hey, you can pick up your new set of ankles on aisle 12. Gets going. He gets a nice gain off of the screenplay. So I'm very happy to see that from Snoop Conner as a whole. And then, Mekhi Sargent, Raquel Armstead, they're still battling for that 4th spot if they do decide to carry one. Or maybe, who knows, Tim Jones might be that fringe offensive starter that the Jaguars, that the Jaguars are looking for to really fill out in that offensive depth chart. And now for the wide receivers, Zay Jones really did have his first quiet night and first quiet ever performance in a Jaguars uniform. All throughout training camp, it's really been the Zay Jones-Trevor Lawrence connection that everyone has been talking about. Holy cow, did the Jaguars find this diamond in the rough? Did they find the next late bloomer in the National Football League at the wide receiver position? It's his first quiet night. He had 3 targets. He had the 1 catch. Ultimately, it really was kind of the Christian Kirk show. It was his first time in a Jaguar uniform, and that's to be expected. I mentioned previously the fact that Trevor had some bad throws to him. He had the long, deep post that he missed him on. He missed him on a couple other ones underneath. But at the same time, he really did find him in some nice spots throughout the rest of the field, throughout the rest of the first half when they were all playing together. So ultimately, Christian Kirk really had a nice game. He was able to get open. There weren't drop issues, thank goodness. I hate that we're still talking about the fact that, oh, hey, there weren't drop issues. Like, that's supposed to be an accomplishment that they had. No, you're just supposed to do your job. You're supposed to catch the ball. But I digress. I'm not going to go off on a tangent about drops. Marvin Jones really kind of I feel like he's starting to settle into that. He's just a number 3 wide receiver now. He's getting older, and he's starting to just be a quality veteran that you can have on your roster, you can have on your depth chart, and that's okay. He's an incredible asset to have on this Jaguars roster. He made some incredible catches through really big hits. So I'm all about Marvin Jones in the role that he's looking like he's going to be playing in for the Jaguars this year. And then Tim Jones. This is his second week in a row he's had a huge target share compared to the rest of the Jaguars wide receivers. And Tim Jones is continuing to impress. I think I saw a stat about this game. I might have saw it on PFF. It was 63 of his 70 yards came after contact. That is just insane. You talk about a wide receiver having 63 of his 70 yards after contact. One, that's kind of like incredible that you're able to get the contested catches, which you clearly have a bunch of if you're only having 7 yards of non-contact. Then on top of that, he also had the huge 51-yarder, breaks a couple tackles, and then gets going upfield. So Tim Jones honestly might be the biggest sleeper pick to make this Jaguars 53-man roster. I've talked about how Mekhi Sargent, Raquel Armstead might be battling for that 4th running back spot. The Jaguars might carry 7 wide receivers instead of carrying 4 running backs. They might end up carrying Tim Jones just because if they don't, we're going to be looking at the next Allen Lazard, and we're going to see him, and we're going to see Tim Jones in another team's uniform making plays, and they're going to go, holy cow, we got this guy after the 53-man cuts a couple of years ago from the Jaguars. This guy is great. And the Jaguars are going to be going, wow, we don't have any good wide receivers, yet there he is. So I'm really starting to think that, it might just be the wounds in me that are speaking right now, but who knows? I'd really like to see Tim Jones really make a push. I think he's going to be one of the last cuts if he ends up being cut. But still, none of the tight ends had big nights. None of the tight ends really featured in the way that they were in the first preseason game where they all played together. Evan Ingram he played well. Chris Manhertz played well. Dan Arnold played well. None of them got huge target shares. None of them had huge opportunities to really make a big impact on the game. So overall, really can't judge a huge base off of that. I'm not going to dive into blocking techniques of a tight end, unfortunately. Sorry, guys. But the tight ends look to be like what we're expecting them all to be. Evan Ingram to be a receiving tight end. Dan Arnold to be a quality number 2 receiving tight end. Chris Manhertz to be the, break glass in case of emergency receiving tight end. And then on top of all of that, Luke Farrell, just being Luke Farrell. He's the draft pick. Hopefully he develops. He showed some nice things in the Hall of Fame game. He shows what he can be. So if he develops into that, incredible. I'm over the moon about it. And it's really the same thing for the offensive line. The offensive line did what they were expected to do. Obviously, they did give up the sack against TJ Watt. But whenever you're going up against the Defensive Player of the Year in 2021, a guy that came very close, if not broke, the single-season sack record. I think he came a sack short of Michael Strahan. And so when you're talking about a player like that, at that caliber, they're going to have success. And then when you look at what the Jaguars have at the 2 tackle positions, they have average to just slightly above average players. They do not have an elite player at either of those positions, but they were going up and against one of the best, if not one of top 2-3 pass rushers right now in the National Football League. So I hate to excuse the sack, but when you look at the situation and the talent disparity of them, it's understandable. And to only give up the 1, it's okay. I'm okay with the 1, as bad as that is to say. And then on the interior, Ben Barch did get the start, and it wasn't bad, it wasn't good. The interior of the offensive line has kind of just been good. And that's okay. I'm not going to break the bank. I'm not going to bust them up about the fact that they're not making huge impact plays. They're interior linemen. We shouldn't be hearing their name called unless they're being nominated for Pro Bowls, All Pros, or God forbid, they're having penalties called on them. Those are really the 3 things that we're going to hear their name called for, and that's okay. So they played well. Not going to bust them up. The offensive line is probably going to be Cam Robinson, Ben Barch, Luke Fortner, Brandon Sheriff, and then Juwan Taylor. I know saying that probably hurts a lot of Jaguar fans' hearts, just because they really wanted Walker Little to win that right tackle spot. So ultimately, it is what it is. But then now on to this defense. This defense had a lot of great things happen for it. They played very well against the run, limiting any running opportunity they had. Yes, Najee Harris wasn't playing, but still, that was the only real star impact player that the Pittsburgh Steelers had that did not play. Tyson Campbell had a lot of great things going for him against George Pickens that we're going to get to here in just a second. But this front seven was creating pressure the entire time they were on the field. It was incredible, and they were getting it with a lot of front four pressure, and it was crazy matchups. I love seeing this Josh Allen, Travon Walker, Kayvon Chason, and then Arden Key, and just these wild matchups that they are creating for the opposing offensive lines, whether they put Foley Fatukasi and Devon Hamilton and Roy Robertson Harrison, whoever they're putting in, they're getting pressure and they're really collapsing this pocket. And this is the second week in a row they've done it against opposing offensive lines and against quality starters in the National Football League as well. So this front seven is just really impressing everyone that's watching these games, as they weren't expected to be a huge unit and make a lot of national noise, but I do think very, very shortly this front seven is going to be making a ton of noise nationally. Now, the Jaguars defense really had that similar high-low effect that the Jaguars offense did, how the Jaguars offense moved the ball really well and then stalled in the red zone. This Jaguars defense really showed a lot of great things in certain moments and then kind of just fell on their face in other moments. Obviously there was that horrendous 2-minute drive that just let Kenny Pickett went straight down the field. It felt like he did whatever he wanted to do, and he was just force-feeding this Jaguars defense whatever he wanted to give them. So that really stung compared to what we've seen from them in the first 3 periods prior to that drive. So ultimately, the Jaguars defense was getting a lot of pressure against this Pittsburgh Steelers offense. They were doing whatever they wanted to do, whether it was Arden Key, who had another sack, Travon Walker, who got very close to getting another sack, Josh Allen got very close to getting another sack, Dewan Smoot had the safety. They were getting to the quarterback. The Jaguars just really struggled bringing him down. There were several plays when it seemed like there was multiple opportunities to bring Mitchell Trubisky down, but they just could not get him to the ground. It just seemed like he was just shedding tackles, and he just could not make the they could just not finish the play. So ultimately, that's going to have to get worked on, actually finishing the play, bringing the quarterback down. But still, they had an incredible job. They did an incredible job, not only against the run, getting pressure with the front four, and just really making the quarterback's life hell for him, constantly on the move and not really able to get anything going until that final drive. And now for the linebackers. Chad Mumma might be one of the most talked about backup linebackers and backups in Jaguars history at the end when it's all said and done here, because you're looking at Oluokun and then you're also looking at Devin Lloyd. But then you have this freak of nature who's appearing to be just an incredible athlete back there in Chad Mumma. Chad Mumma once again showed off his athleticism. Not only is he flying sideline to sideline, he's making plays in the backfield. He's also making plays in coverage. He almost had an interception 15 yards down the field, 15, 20 yards down the field, almost had that toe drag swag, but unfortunately just couldn't bring the ball in time. Couldn't get the feet down at the same time. And it was really but it was still an incredible play. It was a play that was ruled an interception on the field, and then they had to go back and overturn it. So that was an incredible play. And then you also continue to see Foye Oluokun look insanely comfortable with that green dot, getting the defense lined up. And I do think you can attribute some of that success the front seven's been having to Foye Oluokun's leadership, to his communication, because he's been that green dot guy. And then Chad Mumma has filled into that role. Once Oluokun leaves the field, Shaq Quarterman comes in to fill Mumma's previous role, and they really still flow very nicely once Oluokun comes out of the game. So the Jaguars linebacking group is an incredible group, and I think it's a very deep group. When you look at if Shaq Quarterman is your fourth interior linebacker, I think that's a very comfortable place to be between Oluokun, Lloyd, and then Mumma as the top three. And now for the corners. The corners are the guys that are probably going to get beat up the most, because they were the guys that got beat a lot on the 2-minute drive with Pickett. But overall, Tyson Campbell, He drew five targets on the night, completing. He allowed 3 completions for 27 yards, and I believe no first downs. So there's that. But at the same time, it's like you don't want to have your probable number 1 corner allowing over 50% completion on his passes. And Trey Herndon got the look at the nickel spot with Darius Williams once again not playing for the Jaguars. And ultimately, Trey Herndon is Trey Herndon. He's going to be someone that has an incredible camp, and then once you put him on the field, he kind of just leaves some to be desired. He doesn't look the same as what we see in practice from the highlight reels and things like that come out throughout training camp. So ultimately, Trey Herndon kind of did get it picked on a little bit. The Jaguars defense started a little slow due to the fact that Mitchell Trubisky found Chase Claypool right over the back of Trey Herndon's head for a huge completion on 3rd down. So there's that. But then now let's get to this god-awful 2-minute drive to end the first half that the Pittsburgh Steelers marched right down the field with Kenny Pickett. And ultimately, you can kind of chop it up to a little bit of depth issues. Deontay Johnson really started that drive with a huge catch going up the middle. And unfortunately, it was Chris Claybrooks that was on the coverage for that one. So yes, you have the speed matchup there, but then there's just the talent discrepancy between the receiver and the corner. Deontay Johnson is one of the best young wide receivers in the league. Chris Claybrooks is continuously on the bubble to make the 53-man roster. So it is what it is. And then on top of that, there was another play, Pat Freiermuth. It kind of looked like Foye Oluokun was supposed to pick him up and run with him in coverage, but he kind of just thought he looked like he was going to have some help over the top, so he lets him go. And then that is where Foye Oluokun, just kind of leaves him to be wide open. Kenny Pickett hits him for the big play over the middle. So there's that going for them, unfortunately. So that, not to excuse the drive, but there's definitely some reasoning and a bit of explanation and context for why the drive looked like it did. Now, I want to get this out there as well. Did Kenny Pickett make very nice throws and very nice plays in that drive? Yes. But did the Jaguars do nothing to help themselves? Also, yes. They didn't have players in that role. They didn't have players that were going to be able to help them in that situation. They kind of had a little bit more depth going on with Claybrooks being on the field. So it's understandable, and I'm willing to accept the big plays for the sake of development, for the sake of learning and situational downs and things like that. And overall, the safeties, they did what we're expecting safeties to do. There's the safety valves, they all made plays. Dewey Wingard has been playing very well, and he's an incredible depth piece because of how many starting reps he does have in the National Football League. Ultimately, they all played roughly about 22 snaps, and they made a play when they needed to make the play. And then you look at the specialist, Logan Cook. Is Logan Cook. He's one of the best punters in the league. Unfortunately, he's one of the best Jaguars on the team right now. But then Ryan Santoso has just been abysmal kicking, and I hate the fact that him being able to get touchbacks is one of his saving graces. But thankfully, the Jaguars have moved on from them. They have signed a new kicker. Unfortunately, his name is slipping from me right now. But the Jaguars have a new kicker. Is no longer Ryan Santoso. There's reason for hope that the Jaguars are trying to get this figured out. This is the 4th kicker they have had on the roster in just several weeks of what has been training camp thus far. But let me know, what did you guys think of the Jaguars' 16-15 loss against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 2? What are you hoping to see in Week 3 against the Atlanta Falcons, and then pushing on to Week 1 against the Washington Commanders of the regular season? Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe and go Jaguars.
How about them Jags?
Come on, Joe! Ah! Thank you, baby! Thank you! You making blood come from my damn mouth!